Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly integration sync for the Subspace network. Today, we're going to be talking about the status and the updates on our integrations with the .sama ecosystem, the parachains that we're backing up, and the relay chain for Polkadot and Kusama, and the progress we're making towards feeds validation and getting that live on our test network. Ved, if you want to go first, please.
Hey everyone. Last week on the feeds validation, we've added some more improvements on block verification, and that along with some fixes that went in today, especially ensuring that the extrinsics that we're getting as part of the block is the right is actual ones. So what we do is we re-derive the extrinsic route and compare it with the block header extrinsic route. So that seems to be failing yesterday, and we made a patch for it today, and Sergey already confirmed that it's working on his end as well. Uh, I think that is most likely it on the runtime side, at least on what we've discussed. The next steps would be to do the remaining tasks that Nazar started out a week back with two issues in it. First one, to just start accepting blocks from the sequential order. The other one is to pre-fill the blocks at a later time in the backward order. That is not done yet. We could focus on that post the relay changes are up and running.
Okay, Beth, do you have any updates you want to go through on the code side or from what's been pushed to GitHub?
Yeah, okay. The only update was the, let me quickly share my screen. All right. Okay, cool. Found it. So this is the actual code change that went in to do some more pre-checks for the block that we are importing. We weren't doing any of the pre-checks before. And this landed along with this. We've also did a small cleanup this morning to ensure that we are actually doing the right check for the extrinsic route. And this has also been tested and verified by Sergey as well. So on these ends, these are the only two PRs that went in for the feeds. The second task that I was talking about as part of the PR, we haven't started any work on it yet because I was focused on getting this one up and running for Sergey. But I want to start focusing on that once Sergey gives confirmation on the relay integration complete end to end.
And what is that second task?
The second task is pre-filling or filling the blocks in a backward direction.
Okay, that's like
That's
3 months out. So that's not like to start after this finishes. So that's
okay.
not in any ways an immediate priority.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so in that sense, those are the only two changes that went in.
Okay, so so right now, so we get a block from Polkadot, for example, and that is just one, I guess, one blob, one binary object, right? And then that block comes in to the runtime. We decode it so that we can get its structure. We check to make sure that the body merkleizes
The body
into.
itself. Yeah.
Okay.
We do our initial block checks. That is whether the parent hash that we have currently imported or the latest hash that we've imported is ideally the parent for the block that we're importing right now. So we always ensure that the block that we're importing is always a descendant to the best known header that we know of. At the same time, we also do one more check where it is time for us to actually validate the justification present as part of the block. If we are at that particular height where we need to do the validation, we also do the justification check using the current authority set derived as part of the initial feed initialization, and then we import the block. If we are not at that height yet, like imagine if the height is at 100, at which point we validate blocks after 100. all the blocks before 100, we just do the basic block checks like does the extrinsic root leads to the same root defined in the header? Is it a descendant of the previous block? And if the block number is always incrementing or the height is always incrementing, and then we import it. If there is a justification need to be done, then we do justification validation. If not, then we just import it out of the box. And and the relayer can start pushing out new blocks as soon as they get finalized. And at the validation point, we start to actually verify those blocks using the justifications provided.
Okay, so for every block that we import, we make sure that the body merkleizes to the header, and then we make sure that the header hashes to the previous header that was hashed into the feed.
And block number.
And then it's and the block number increments by one.
Okay. By one, yeah.
And then once we get up to the point that we've determined that we're going to start doing grandpa validation, then we start actually checking to make sure that the grandpa consensus is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Along with the previous checks that we talk about.
In addition to that, right?
Okay.
Right. Okay. For parachains, what are we doing? Are we doing everything but grandpa, or nothing?
No. At the moment, parachains we are doing nothing. We would ideally need to start looking at the grandpa block that we imported. Kind of understand the structure of the extrinsic.
That's fine if we're doing nothing. I just wanted to be clear on that. I mean, if we're doing grandpa, then we're assuming implicitly that everything else.
Yeah.
If we're checking the parent, then yeah. So that's fine. I just wanted to understand what we were doing there. That's not a requirement. We don't need to start doing that. That's not a priority. Okay. So everything you described has been merged and approved.
It's already landed in our main right now, and we could do another runtime upgrade with the new changes that landed today if we want to do it in the testnet. I'm not sure if we have already done the previous upgrade on it, Nazar.
I've done the previous upgrade on the farmnet. I didn't touch testnet in any way.
Okay. Yeah, I think in that sense, like we could do a forkless upgrade on farmnet itself with the latest changes that landed. I mean, if that's something that we are looking towards.
Okay. On testnet, not on farmnet.
Yeah. I mean, the farmnet is the most up to date, so that's why I suggested farmnet.
I mean, we can deploy it to farmnet, but it's
not used anyway.
Yeah. Okay, but we have not deployed. But the changes that we deployed to farmnet, we have not deployed to testnet. The last forkless runtime upgrade.
Yeah, and I think it should do a forkless upgrade because the testnet is already the latest snapshot or the previous snapshot we had, and there was no client changes in between. So it should ideally do a simple runtime or forkless upgrade as well.
Wait, testnet?
Yeah, like I've verified on the testnet where the testnet was running with. Oh, it's not testnet, is it? I'm not sure. Maybe I confused you.
So the testnet is running March update as well. But it's not the latest code base, like not from main. And the API of the feeds will change. So what I think we need to do, we need to launch test C and deploy a new instance there.
No, we could do a direct. We could do a direct upgrade, no, Nazar? We could do a direct forkless upgrade, right?
We can, but then the feeds will break, wouldn't they?
We just need to create a new feed for Polkadot and start pushing blocks from 0, and that would start to fill up the blocks, no? Like, I mean, my main question is like, we can ideally take the current state of testnet, do a runtime upgrade on top of it, keep that current state as is, create a new feed for Polkadot or .sama, and then like do the new import. With 0.
If we do that over the network, that's going to be really, really slow for 200 gigabytes to re-import everything. So this is why when we restart the relayer, like if we go to test C, why we started on a single instance that reads off the archives, off the drives, versus requesting all this data over the RPC, because it takes exponentially longer to do that.
Well, I think requesting is irrelevant because we will, if we have a new feed, we will start it from the archive. That's not a question. I think the challenge is that our frontend expects the feed ID to be a very specific number, so we'll have to like update it.
Yeah.
And it will be inconsistent between test A and test B at that point. And also, I'm not sure that our like events and other things are fully compatible with the new version. So we might need to do more front-end changes. And I'm not sure that we will have proper runtime state upgrades between those two. So basically, all of the old feeds will break anyway if you do runtime upgrades. So maybe just start fresh.
I agree. I think it would be better just to do a clean start. And
yeah,
like we discussed,
we can start with merge snapshot, do runtime upgrade, and then create all of the feeds and everything.
I mean, yeah, I was just trying to avoid like not creating another testnet C, so that like I'm already confused between these two where they are and what the status is. Adding one more is just gonna blow
Actually, we can call it relay net A at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's call it relay A, and then we're just going to deprecate everything else that we had before that as soon as that's live, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay.
So Serge, you probably missed this yesterday. You weren't on that call, but we're going to start a new naming convention for less confusion for our farm nets and our relay nets, where instead of switching back between A, B, A, B, A, B, and like, well, which one was the last one? Like, well, you have to remember. We're going to go A, B, C, D, like E. So every time we migrate to a new network, we're just basically going to like destroy the old one and create a new one and just increment the letter by one. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So for our current test net, which one is public facing, A or B?
B.
And it doesn't seem to work right now.
Yeah, there is a problem.
So maybe just switch to test A at this point.
Test A actually already ahead of B, at least according to UI. But I think UI doesn't reflect in the actual state. That's another issue.
Okay, time to send it to,
okay.
I don't know.
Do you have everything? Are you able to do all that to do that transition, Serge? Do you have access to everything you need?
No, I never tried. I need to check how it's done.
Just a domain name. I can switch it right now.
Okay.
So is that on Cloudflare?
Yeah.
Do you have access to Cloudflare, Serge?
Not sure.
I thought you did. Okay, if not offline, can you sync with Nazar or whoever?
Yeah.
To get it, it should be in Bitwarden. So if you just get with Justin, you should be able to get the keys to that and get access. That's something.
No, we actually share the account, so like I have access to the account without password.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's all we need to do is just point the front end to the correct domain name. Everything else is ready to go. Okay. Okay, so then in that case, we need to spin up what we're going to call relay A. We need to instantiate that on a new machine and start syncing that. But I guess you're saying, Nazar, you want to go with the old snapshot and then do a runtime upgrade on that? Couldn't we just like create a new snapshot and just deploy that as is, so we don't have to do a runtime upgrade on top of it?
We could. However, the challenge is with the chain spec. When we want to run more nodes or we want to connect another node to it, we need to have the same chain spec, meaning the same Genesis state. However, the Genesis state embedded in the testnet chain spec is like canonical in JSON, and the one that's compiled it's like different every time. So every single build will potentially result in a different Genesis state. So it will be challenging to connect to that testnet later on. So it's easier to just start with the canonical canonical Genesis, and then to connect to. Well, there is a challenge there as well. Okay, let's think about it offline. Let's just create a thread on Discord and discuss it.
Okay, so but that's only a challenge if we need to have a second node on testnet, right? So they have the same runtime hash.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, like we are doing with Ivan right now, we are trying to sync from that, and we need to have the same kind.
But that's like a big hack workaround. That's not really what it's designed for. Like, probably for this version of testnet, we might only need a single node until we create the next version.
Doesn't matter. I would prefer it to be proper.
Okay. Okay. So you want to take the snapshot, run a forklift runtime upgrade on that. But we have to do that before we start the feeds, right?
Yes. But that takes like 2 minutes to do them great.
Okay. And Ved, we have the ability to set the block height now, at which point we enable the solution range reset, the variable solution range.
You mean the fuse to start adjusting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once we do a runtime upgrade, depending on, I think the current runtime says do not update the solution range by default when it starts. So we would have to do one more sudo call to actually enable it at a point that we ideally want it. It's not predefined to a specific block at the moment.
Okay. So basically we need to spin up a new machine, put the old snapshot on it, immediately upgrade the runtime, then start syncing from the archives. And then once we're synced from all the archives, then we have another transaction which enables the work difficulty reset.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is going to be the one that sets up all that and runs all that?
Once we have, okay, so on the upgrade side, or at least on pushing out the extrinsic to actually adjust the solution range, we can pretty much do that through pull projects. I can actually do that once we have access to the front end to actually send extrinsics to the testnet. And I think we can start the relayer. I'm not sure if Surge would be able to start sending out the blocks to the relayer from the relayer to the testnet. Once we have that point when we can actually start looking at enabling the fuse. And before that, I'm not sure if Nazar, if you need my help on upgrading forklifts, doing a forklift upgrades. If not, I can do it as well. I just need to have access to the DO, I think.
Yeah, you'll probably need my help with the upgrade itself because only me and Jeremiah have sudo keys to actually do that. But
yeah, yeah.
Actually, I was thinking with the chain specs. So the challenge there is to have the correct version, but also there is another challenge. Right now in the chain spec, we've actually added the bootstrap node, and it seems like the ones that you specify with CLI only extended, not overrided. So as soon as you start testnet, it will join the farmnet and will start pulling all of the history. So I think what we need to do, we can actually try to just run testnet compiled and extract chain spec from that, and just run with that and like edit it, remove the bootstrap nodes from there, and just run with that chain spec explicitly on the testnet. That's it.
There should be an option when you're building spec to have like don't include bootstrap nodes.
Right. I just added them manually in the JSON.
Oh, okay,
so that
cool.
it works by default for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we don't need any runtime upgrades. Just export the compiled one with the latest and just run it.
Okay. So then in that case, I think you guys can get started without Nazar's help until we need to deploy the upgrade to enable the solution reset for the work difficulty.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So just to understand, so can I already do we already go ahead and make a snapshot from the current main and then get a wasm fork or like wasm blob?
I need to do few more tweaks. I'll do it probably either today or tomorrow. There are a few things I want to get in, and then we'll release like a proper thing. We'll announce it today on the AMA.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Nazar, you're going to release a snapshot in the next 24 hours, and then we'll be able to create a new machine, deploy that snapshot, build that snapshot, deploy to that machine, manually set the chain spec, and then start syncing. wait however many days, hopefully a few days for it to sync. Okay. Okay, cool. Any questions on that side? And
so
Nizar, you're
who's
also
gonna
going to
create?
Sorry, go ahead, Serge.
Yes. So who's gonna create the machine?
Probably Sam.
Okay.
So we were calling the previous one areas test. Let's call it areas relay or relayer. So we'll have farmnet and relaynet will not have testnet to not confuse users, because they sometimes look at the testnet for their coins, but they're not there. So we'll have to like rename it in the Explorer as well once we deploy it.
Okay. Okay, so we want Sam to handle all that, building the machine and doing the sync,
Yeah.
or is he just going to build the machine and then hand it off to Serge and let Serge handle the
Yeah, I
sync?
think he'll create a machine and Serge can deploy it probably.
Okay. Okay.
And you'll probably need my help to fund some of the accounts. So just let me know when that happens.
Oh, we need the pseudo key for that too.
Yeah, balance transfers are disabled, but I can like forcefully inject some funds on those accounts with sudo. Yeah.
You mean fund accounts for Relayer?
Yes.
But we don't actually need to fund them
We
because
do.
extrinsics are free.
Puts are. Batch transactions aren't. You still pay some small.
Oh, okay.
Like
yeah, because I submit locally. I submit one by one. So
right. Right.
I'm not submitting batch.
Okay.
I think maybe we can start to submit in batch. I think that would push blocks much faster.
That's what we do.
We in production we submit batch, but locally when I test it,
okay,
I do one by one.
All right, my bad. I thought you were saying like we were pushing it one by one. Okay.
Okay, great. All right, let's switch gears. Serge, if you want to talk about the relayer itself and where that's at.
Yeah, so regarding feed validation, I did some integration of the recent changes that Vad mentioned, and it seems to work okay. However, I'm trying to test the transition from the like regular blocks that are not verified to blocks that after this checkpoint that requires verification. And currently, because we are starting from block 1 and we have to maintain the sequence, I cannot. I have to wait a lot of blocks for the transition. For example, for Polkadot, it's like 300 something thousand blocks, which is too long. So I tried like Substrate node template, but it doesn't expose grant by API for some reason. Yeah, I thought maybe I can try Kusama. In that case, I will have to wait just 28,000 blocks, which is like within a day, I think. It's possible to test. Or Ved, just before the meeting, he sent me another option, Substrate node, and I will check that one. Yeah, so I want to test that. And also I wanted to clarify the workflow with processing blocks from archives, from local archives. So currently we do not, we store blocks in archives from Genesis, but they do not have justifications. So before this checkpoint, they will be processed as usual. But after the checkpoint, we have to fetch justifications. And that will probably make processing from archives slower, like same as over the network. So should we just stop processing from archive and continue over the RPC after the checkpoint? Or we still continue from archive, we just fetch finality proofs, but that will make it slower significantly.
Well, if you fetch both blocks and justifications, it will be even slower than if you just fetch justifications. So I don't see the point of not using archives.
Okay.
But maybe we should just update the code and start creating new archive that contains justifications, even though we may like ignore it until some point.
We can, but then we need to have a fresh node, local node running, and resync it. So finality proofs endpoint works.
Well, we can ignore errors from that endpoint, and we can like fetch finality from wherever it's available.
Okay.
Well, what couldn't we? I mean, the archives are always, a few hours or a few days behind the live network. So
no, they're real, like they are constantly updated. So they should be up to date all the time.
How are we enabling the feeds validation? Do we set a block height in the chain spec or something? Or is there an extrinsic we submit to activate it?
When we create a feed, we provide the header of the block that starts the process.
Okay. So I was going to say,
so if you know that we have justifications from some block, we can really specify that block specifically.
Okay. So I was going to say, if we just once we finish the archive sync and we're syncing from over the RPC instead, if we could just enable feeds validation at that point, that would solve that problem.
Well, we need to specify that block height during creation of the feed.
Right. So we have to know almost exactly how long it's going to take for the archiving to work. How long does it take to build the archives?
Weeks. Well, depends on how fast your endpoint is, but public endpoints are not very fast. So
yeah,
we can probably just upgrade the script and only like write blocks that are written after upgrade with justifications, but just leave the existing archive as is. I don't think that the structure changes. Like we already have justification field in there. So.
Well, I think for now, the easiest option would be just fetch finality proofs on demand.
But that's also the slowest one.
No, the slowest one is to fetch everything.
All right. Yeah. It's the mid option. I just feel like we need to update the script sooner or later anyway.
Yeah.
So we can just do both in parallel.
Yeah, if we just update the script and then just restart the archive or the archiver, then it should just pick, we should just maintain all the archives that we have right now. They'll just start.
Yeah, in an hour, you can copy it over and it will already have justifications.
How would the feeds validation handle that? If the difference between having the justification or not having the justification?
Justification is already a part of the signed block. It's like already there. It was just empty all the time. And now it will contain proper data, but regardless, it's the same data structure. It's valid either way.
Sorry. So you want a script to update existing archive or to create?
No. Once we restart, it will like append new blocks with justifications. And the old blocks will be without justifications.
Append where?
To the end, like the new ones, they appear.
You mean new ones? Okay. So we update the script that creates archives all the time, and the new blocks, the old blocks are as is, and the new ones will have finality proofs. Okay.
Yeah.
But what if our checkpoint is at that point where we don't have?
We'll put checkpoints at the point where we do have.
Okay.
We will recreate archive if necessary, but for now it's probably not a big deal.
Yeah, so we'll set the checkpoint at the point after this updated script has been deployed.
Okay, so I will update the script. And should we update whole archive at some point?
that is probably going to be once we have a chain ops person on board that we do that. But I think the archives we have will work for now.
Okay. Yeah. So my priority is to test this transition, and if everything works well, I will maybe probably PR should be fine, so it will be ready for review, and after PR is merged, we're ready with relayer.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here. I just want to make sure that we don't get stuck for another week on this. Can we not just go ahead and merge the PR and test it over the network? You know, because I feel like that's just going to take a few more days, like, to resolve. And if we find that it's not working, like, you can still test it in parallel, like try yourself, and if it doesn't work, we could always restart, you know, the archive or like deploy the updated code or whatever. But it feels like it's not necessarily, like, in a perfect world, yeah, we would test everything, but like, is it going to be a big deal if it fails, you know, or if we find out like one way or the other? Does that make sense?
Jeremiah, are you talking about the test where we are actually validating or start validating the blocks?
Right.
No, okay, makes sense what you said, but there should be a much easier way to start a substrate node. I'm not sure why Sergey is not able to get the justifications from the node template. I'll try on my end on the substrate node itself. If we can get the justifications there, then I think it will be much faster to verify the transition.
Is not template running Babe or Aura?
No template would be running Aura. So I
Right.
think that could
in
be one
Substrate
reason.
repository, there are two templates, kind of. There is like Node, which contains a whole bunch of stuff,
Yeah,
and Babe,
the full stuff.
and the other is simpler one.
Yeah, I was redirecting Sergey to the full one that contains like everything, and that should definitely give a grandpa justification for sure. Then we can start it, and at some point, like maybe 10 blocks after, we can start to validate.
Maybe you can look at something like West End or Rococo. Maybe some of them are smaller.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too.
It's just that they'll all connect to a new the existing network, and he'll do the same thing again. Like with the node, just do a local deploy, and then that should give you grandpa justifications as well.
But on this relayer A, are we going to deploy both for Polkadot and Kusama, or we start with Kusama, for example?
I think we need to deploy the whole package of everything,
including parachains, like.
Yeah, it would be awkward if we upgrade it and lose every parachain.
Yeah, I think we want to deploy the whole thing, but do we have to? They're all on the same machine, right? We were doing it, or I guess it's all. Yeah, it all has to be from the same settings. I was just thinking if there's a way that we could like launch Kusama first and then launch Polkadot next, but they're all sort of tightly coupled the way it's set up right now, right?
No, they're independent. Like there are separate relayers, one for Kusama and one for Polkadot.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess then just we want to set them both up, but the priority would be to get Kusama going first, just in case we encounter any issues in the setup process.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got to test that the switch works on the relayer. We've got to merge the relayer PR, get that approved. And we've got to deploy the new relayer. We've got to get a snapshot together for the node. We've got to deploy that node. And we've also got to set up a machine to deploy all this onto. And the machine is going to have both the relayer and the node on the same machine, right? Yeah. Okay.
I just switched to test A, and it doesn't open anymore. Neither directly nor your explicit one. And I think number of connections is our issue, so probably so we should take a look at it and maybe increase the number of WebSocket connections allowed, just like on FarmNet.
On test day. Okay.
Yeah, it just takes a while to open, like very long time to open.
Does that mean the relay is down on the website right now?
It loaded for me, but like after 2 minutes or something.
Okay. Okay. Are we clear on your next step, Serge?
Yeah.
Okay. Nizar, can you reach out to Sam and ask him to set that machine up?
Yes, Will.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else on the feeds validation upgrade for the relayer? Okay, thanks guys. Okay, Skylar, if you want to give us an update on the parachain onboarding.
Yeah, hey guys. Just very briefly, we had a few new parachains that won their auctions over the weekend. On Sunday, Lit Entry won on Polkadot. So that brings us up to 15 Polkadot chains that are on the relayer. So this one will actually be added to the backlog of chains that still need to be onboarded. We have 2 currently, including Lit Entry, which is 1. So not a ton on the backlog there. We'll have another one that should be added in about 10 days on May 6th. And then on Kusama, the same story. Dora won a parachain on Kusama on Sunday. We have 3 backlogged to get added onto the relayer there. And that will bring us up to 29 Kusama chains, total of 44 substrate chains. We'll have another Kusama chain that will be available to onboard on May 1st in 5 days. So next week we'll have another one. But yeah, I had some financial stats to share, but I can save that for another week. And those are the only updates on the parachain side.
What do you mean by financial?
Just like the cost for parachains, they're going down, it's going up, like how much you have to bond.
If you want to give us a quick update on that, that's useful.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Lit Entry, just so they won their parachain, they had to bond $16 million USD worth of DOT tokens. So that's their cost to lock up the slot for 22 months. That cost is down 97% since Moonbeam paid $606 million back in November, so about 6 months ago. So down quite a bit, but it's also up 60% from the lows when Fala paid $10 million. So it went down pretty much a straight line down, and it started to rebound a little bit for Polkadot. Pretty similar story for Kusama. Dora had to bond $2.1 million worth of KSM to keep the parachain slot for 11 months. So half as much time for 2.1 million. That price is down 97% since Karura paid about 80 million back in June. So they're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that. But the price is also up 120% since Kiko won in January. They only had to pay about $940,000. So same story on Polkadot and Kusama. It's pretty much been a straight line down for prices, but they're starting to rebound a little bit recently. So just something to keep in mind as these original parachains are going to have to renew their slot for a lower price. There'll be a lot more DOT and KSM available. And yeah, I predict that the prices will keep going down since crowd loan rewards are probably going to be more spread out now. So we'll see. Just something to keep an eye on if we're planning on integrating with the relay chain at some point.
Have the percentage, like if you look at whatever that cost is to lease, there's a percentage between like what the project puts up and then what the community puts up in the crowd loan. Has that percentage shifted more so it's being paid more for by the project and less by the community, or?
Yeah, you've seen more projects self-funded. Of course, there's still participation from the community, but there's several examples of projects doing their entire funding process on their own, so they don't have to give out any additional rewards. But now we have different projects that are available to help, like Parallel Finance, to help with the crowd loan process. So it's getting more accessible, but teams on their second time around are tending to self-fund.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Serge, any updates on your side on the parachain onboarding?
Not really. Like mentioned parachains, I checked them all, and currently they either have no public endpoint, or like Mangata, it produces blocks, but yeah, no public endpoint. Or there is a public endpoint like PCU, but it just doesn't work. So it's a bit early to onboard them.
Okay, any questions for Skylar? All right, thank you, Skylar.
Thanks, guys.
All right, anything else we need to discuss?
I can mention a few like updates on Relayer, not related to feed validation. So there was an issue on test A with timeout, connection dropped, and that's why I submitted a PR to Polka.js, and we updated all the dependencies, but it didn't help. I mean, it helped on test A, but the issue still remains, just less. But now we have same issue on test B. So I think it's probably related to RPC connection, not Polka.js. So I need to investigate more on that. But yeah.
Zara looks like he's about to say something.
No, not really. Maybe just the fact that we are running remote desks, like mounted, and use that for several purposes. Maybe that makes it slow. I don't know.
And the slowness means just the slowness in keeping up with the new pair blocks as they're coming in.
No, just RPC doesn't respond sometimes.
Oh, so we just never get the pair block. So we're skipping blocks.
No, it doesn't. Our RPC, like Subspace RPC, doesn't respond.
Okay, so there's an issue Nazar just said where the website's not responding when we try to load it.
I think can be related to that.
Might be.
Okay, so then what is the effect? What is the downside then if it's not on the website? What does it mean if our RPC is not responding from the relayer? Like it's not responding when the blocks are sent over?
Yeah, like when we submit extrinsic, Relayer submits extrinsic to Subspace node, it's dropped. And I think the Relayer UI does not reflect the chain state. It can be same reason. So I need to investigate more on that.
We don't have a separate RPC connection for each parachain, right? It's just one-to-one between the relayer and the actual node.
No, we have separate connections with parachains. Like every
parachain to relayer, there's like a network of connections, but from relayer to node, it's just one.
Yeah, from relayer to node, as far as I remember, we have one connection. But
I think we were opening one for every parachain. Otherwise, it was very slow. That's what I recall.
Yeah, you're right. We have, for every chain, we have two connections. That's right.
So probably just as we add more parachains, we're just slowly getting up to whatever some limit is.
So maybe we can create like a pool of connections and just reuse them across parachains, so we don't have to create too many of them.
Yeah, how many do we have right now? Like 40 something?
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, 44.
Okay.
That's
Maybe
not a
we did-
problem. Like on the farmnet, I believe we've unlocked 10,000 connections or something. I believe on the interview with some chain ops, we've actually heard number of like 50,000 connections per node. So I think we are very far from limits of what the node can physically handle. It's more like the default, I believe, is 100 or something. Just need to raise that limit in the parameters.
Does that depend on the instance size at all?
Probably, but I don't expect with 40 nodes we are anywhere near what the node can handle.
Okay. Do you have an issue open for that, Serge?
No, I will create.
Okay. Any other updates, Serge?
No, nothing significant.
All right. Anything else we need to cover, guys? All right. Well, thank you everybody for the hard work. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you again next week.